and we're live. So welcome everybody to the Mr. C Dives In, the Chris Conley channel. As usual, I'm here with my longtime pal, Fanboy G, and the guest of honor tonight is Nicole Houff. Let me just say, we're going to come to the most current, most recent, major points of interest first, but we'll come back to and fill in. There was a time, there was a year, I was trying to find a good anniversary present for the wife, which led me to searching, which led me to find Tiki Barbie, but we'll come back to that. I usually like to go chronological order, but Nicole, thanks for coming on the show. Welcome here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so honored.
The honor is all on us. We appreciate you taking the time. This is great.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Highlights or recent events for you. C2E2 in Chicago. Svengoolie of the Svengoolie show on MeTv. Kind of had an ability, a moment, an opportunity to get a Svengoolie autograph on one of your pieces, which was then also featured on the actual show. So tell us about that. That was a long time. You were looking forward to that. Walk us through your experience with that.
Totally a bucket list item for me. As a longtime Sven, fan and watcher, I had been thinking about like when the opportunity was going to show up that I could, like a piece that would work, to mail to him. And I never assume that it's going to be on, because he gets inundated with, I can't even imagine how much he gets mailed to him or emailed to him. So as a huge Creature from the Black Lagoon fan, when I finished that piece, I'm like, now this is the one I want to mail to Sven and see, with like a little note and just see, if he got a kick out of it, And so I did, and I left a note, and this was a while ago. And again, never assumed that I would see it on the broadcast because, it's like, but even if I don't, I knew that I sent him something I was really proud of and hopefully gave him a smile. And then, Mr. C was so amazing and said that, he was going to get in line to see Sven and get my print signed. And it was just unbelievable. It was really, and right after that, I swear, like the very next, it was like the next weekend, right? That yeah. It was, and all of a sudden I'm watching Sven, and I wasn't really assuming that he was going to show my piece or anything, because, I mailed it a few months before that. And then all of a sudden during the mail segment, there was another piece of art with the Creature from the Black Lagoon. And so I quick grabbed my phone and I'm like, maybe it'll be on. And then it was on, and it was just like, I hope, I don't know if Sven knows like how big that is when he shows somebody's work like that. It was just, it was like a bucket list thing. It was really a dream. It was, and then to have one signed by Sven, and of course he signed it so fun too. And that, of course, is thanks to Mr. C. So.
Well, and here we all are now. I see we have a couple of comments, so let's check the comments, and then we'll look at the actual piece and speak on that for a little bit. Oh, look, it's Fanboy G.
It's me.
All right.
Yeah. Oh man, I don't know.
All right, and here's a more conventional. Let's go. So let's go right to come back over to
what's going on.
Here we go. Brand and banners and brand. Here we go. So now let's block out ourselves. And so here we go. So the way Rich Sven signed it was, because that's the ongoing joke on the show, I have a store. So I thought that would be for a funny way to go about it. You have a store. And so, all right. How did you put this together? It's Barbie. It's the Creature of the Black Lagoon. It's a backdrop. Just walk us through your process.
Absolutely. So again, big Creature from the Black Lagoon fan, how can you not? My, favorite of the Universal monsters. And I watched the movie recently. I've seen it a million times, but and I was in the eBay rabbit hole of just looking at Creature from the Black Lagoon, memorabilia and figures. and all of a sudden came across one that he's about 12 inches tall. So and Barbie's about 11 and a half. So I was like, no way. There's one and it's made by Hasbro, and I found one deboxed for a really good price. And I'm like, this is absolutely perfect for doing a shoot. Like an homage to, one of my favorite movies. So scooped up the creature. And then I knew that I wanted to use a Barbie that kind of emulated, Kay in the movie. So I wanted to use a brunette, which I obviously did. And then I had to look around and find a white swimsuit because I thought that was super iconic. And then I didn't want to do kind of the stereotypical, the creature carrying her off or anything, because generally for my photos, Barbie's not a damsel in distress or anything. And I mean, the poor creature, he's raging because they're like, torturing him. So I'm like, you know what? No, they're just going to be hanging out on the beach, not, being tortured or carried off. And just like a kind of not, an unexpected scene for them. And so once I had the dolls and I found the little beach chair online and the other little accessories, what I did is I printed out a background, like the actual water and everything that would emulate the lagoon, and then print it and hang it like a backdrop in the studio. And then I bought sand that matches the sand color in the backdrop. And then, you lay that on the table up to the backdrop to kind of give this appearance that they're on a real beach, and then set the dolls up and the accessories, and then design the lighting to kind of emulate the sun. So that's what I did.
Oh my goodness.
And it's really fun because Barbie, there's a bunch of accessories that are made for her that are Barbie sized that aren't necessarily for Barbie, because all you have to do is look for things that are 1 to 6 scale, which is Barbie scale. So like the beach chair isn't technically for Barbie. And then the little fake Coronas weren't made for Barbie either, but they're the right size.
That's
so
perfect.
Looking for all those little bits and pieces are to me some of the funnest part.
It's just everything came together in the best way. G, I definitely want to get your input, but as we have commenter Chai Star G, who is himself an artist, his question, his first of these upcoming questions that he has: do you do any post photo retouching, and if so, what app do you use?
No, that's a really good question. I use Adobe Photoshop, and I just do basic retouching. So if there's stray hairs or plastic imperfections, like the creature had a lot of scuffing because I got him deboxed and everything, and so I had to clean that all up. I don't ever add anything in post. Well, generally I don't add anything in post. It's just generally the basic retouching. And then, but yeah, I use Adobe Photoshop. And then it says, do you do any custom work on the figures in the photo? That also is a really great question. I do sometimes. And if the figure or the Barbie or anything needs any custom work, like if I need to reset her hair or anything like that, I actually send it out to somebody that does professional restoration for dolls, because to have her hair redone or to do any repainting, it has to be really impeccable. Otherwise, it just looks, it does not photograph well. I only have had hairstyles redone, but the dolls that I use, I've never switched their face paint. But I do have people that do that. So if there is a shoot that I decide I want to switch her face paint, I would send her out to professionally be repainted.
That's amazing. I just noticed that I hadn't noticed in the first time I saw that print. You've got the detail all the way down to there is sand on his feet, on the creature's feet. It's between his toes. It's on the I don't know, the heels or flippers or whatever the heck is going on, but it's all the way down to that level of detail. That's amazing.
That was, I mean, that's the thing. It's like there's still toys. So I mean, when I'm working on stuff, I'm still, you still sort of interact with it in a playful way. I mean, if it's not bringing joy when you're working on it, I mean, it's not going to exude joy for people to look at it. So for that one, it was there's like a little seam, on his foot because he's plastic. And so I was like, I could retouch that out, of course. But I was like, but the sand, because like, of course, Barbie wouldn't have any sand on her shoes. It would be impeccable. But I was like, he would totally have sand on his feet.
That's fantastic. It is. I used to, Mr. C, you know this. I used to be big into the GI Joe 1/6 scale action figure line, which unfortunately there is not a 1/6 scale GI Joe line. There's other brands out there, Hot Toys and other. And I was big into individual little accessories. And I think I've shown this to you before, Mr. C, but I have this this is 1/12 scale sushi that I haven't figured out what the heck to do with it, but it's like this rabbit hole of all of these accessories, and well, I don't have a plan for this now, but it's kind of cool, so maybe I'll use it for something.
It's true, the detail too, and it's funny that you say that because my second Godzilla shoot, because this one is more traditional. I mean, we haven't. Anyways, I just did more of a traditional one, but then I'm doing another one where it's like Barbie and Godzilla out for sushi. Something completely random. Like not destroying, Japan. So that's actually on my. That's coming up this summer. I'm serious.
Okay. We'll send this over to you. Yeah.
It's like your Carson with the Karnak envelope. You know where it's going before it gets there. That's a beautiful thing. And we're going to jump onto the Godzilla picture in a second. I got to say, in closing on the creature, even if the sand wasn't on the foot, I would still I have to have this thing. But I'm telling you, just that's iced the cake. That made it because if he was walking out of the lagoon onto the beach, some sand would stick on his feet. So at the same time, it's comedic, yet realism, and so good stuff. Okay.
Well,
so
I like that for that piece. I feel like that kind of solidified becoming friends too, because you sent me a really nice message about asking about the figure. And I feel like, and then we were talking about, the other pieces. And I feel like, and that kind of brought up that, because I think I asked you because I saw you were in Chicago about Svengoolie, but, and look, now the rest is history. We're friends.
The rest is history. And let us not forget our first guest on any of our channels is Casual Crafter. We don't have to use Casual Crafter for recustomizing your stuff, but hey, Crafter, we're thinking about you even when we're not calling you out. Okay, so here we go. Barbie, Godzilla.
Wow.
Go.
So I literally just finished this. It's still set up in back of me. It was one of those pieces that I'm super proud of because I'd been thinking about it for a while, but I didn't know the logistics on it at all because, I didn't even know if there was similar to creature, like, is there a Godzilla figure that's even going to work for it? And then some of the toy photographers that do action figures that I follow that also sometimes incorporate Godzilla, there's a lot more action to them. And of course, vintage Barbie is super stiff. She's, there's not much movement there. So, which I like because that's sort of the joke with the old dolls. But then it's how to incorporate that with a Godzilla shoot. So it was one that I had been kicking around for a long time. And then I had mentioned before we were live, but last year at my first art fair, I had a young boy come in and was talking to me about the creature from the Black Lagoon one and Star Trek one, and was just really up on his pop culture. And when I asked him, I'm like, what do you want to see next year? He said, which was just amazing. He's like, I want to see Barbie versus Godzilla. And I'm like, challenge accepted. So it's it really put to the forefront for me that I'm like, okay, I can't go into another art fair season without this piece completed. But it was intimidating for me because, again, it was a little out of my wheelhouse. The first issue was trying to find a Godzilla that worked. And then that ended up being oddly easy. Like I just typed in, I can't even remember, but it ended up that Target had 11-inch Godzillas. And, again, just barely shorter than Barbie. So perfect. So literally I just scooched on down to my local Target half a mile away and picked one up. And so one of the biggest hurdles for me was actually very easy. And then this one, what I did is I started setting it up and playing with it, and I was kind of failing for a while, and then I would walk away from it. And then it's like it needed things that I didn't quite know yet. And so I rewatched a bunch of old Godzilla movies, which, I love. And I started figuring out that what I needed was it's N scale. So it's like the model train scale, but smaller scale accessories. So that's where I found like the little tanks and the little cars, and all the buildings are N scale, and the plane. And then actually the rubble I ended up buying also from a model train, like online site. And then I actually, one of my biggest problems was I had her in a completely different outfit. I had her in kind of this 60s silver and metallic blue kind of little mini skirt type thing from like a mod era Barbie. And I thought, oh, this will be perfect. This kind of has like a spacey feel to it, which I thought was kind of good with Godzilla, but it really wasn't working. And it just so happened that a fellow that I follow on Instagram and Etsy called Mark of Fashion does these beautiful Barbie outfits. And he had one left of this one, and it's a reproduction of a Japanese exclusive from the 60s. That's impossible. I mean, to find an actual non-reproduction of it is next to impossible. And so it's like the outfit made it, because it had the movement, and it had this, like the color pop and the contrast, and that I think really helped propel the shoot to completion.
And it so works. It so came together. I think at one point you used the expression "tighten the narrative," and so that specific phrasing, gee, as I alluded to in our text earlier. Okay, gee, tell me a story about what you see. Like what's the before? What's the after? What's 3 seconds before the shot was taken? What's going on immediately after? What's going on in the story of the picture?
There's a lot going on in this picture. I think that Barbie is about to swing that arm and knock Godzilla into the 12th floor over there. I think that's what's about to happen. She's mid swing. Yeah.
She's got a little side eye going for him. The tanks are in support of her. If I was going to go a contrarian story, I would say, she's holding hands with him, and they're about to go destroy the city together. But that's like you could play with different storylines off of the one shot image.
I'm fascinated. So can you go to the one shot so we could just get a glimpse of Nicole with the diorama, the actual diorama behind her.
And again, it might be that you're
no, pretty close.
So wait, if I kick Nicole into the first spot, then it would here. Now that's just me, which we don't want. So if we put Nicole over here, then do we get?
Oh,
that's all right. No.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Yeah, yes. That's success. So
I'm like, why are you asking me to do stuff I don't know how to do? But if we're going outside of wheelhouses, let's go outside of wheelhouses.
So this is fascinating. You've got multiple apartment buildings or office buildings of Godzilla World of Tokyo there in the background. So those are individual pieces that you did you weather them? Were they already blown up, or How did you?
They were actually already had the damage
Wow,
to
that's
them.
awesome. That's awesome.
And
That
you know,
they
I
are
think a lot of
perfect.
people paint them, but I wanted them as like the monochromatic, you know, color palette. Like I didn't want that to be distracting. I kind of liked that they were just gray. And I actually found them on Amazon. I know that there are other manufacturers out there too, but these were just kind of inexpensive. Yeah, they had the weathered look. I was able to scoop a bunch of them up. Interesting enough, they don't come with any directions, and they're all little pieces. And then when I went to their website, it specifically said, we do not give directions. And I'm like, well, okay then. And I cannot tell you how enraging it was to build. They make sense to build, but there is something super enraging about building them. Like I broke little nubs. Oh my God, it was I could only do a few at a time, and then I'm like, okay, the rest will wait till tomorrow. Oh.
Those are perfect. Those are absolutely perfect. The way, because if you had painted it, then it would have detracted from the main focus.
Much.
Yeah.
And then like you know, and then for Barbie, she's actually on. So I have a little stand cut through the mat. This is like a rubber mat. And then she has a little thing that goes along there. And then you know, normally the outfit kind of flaps like this, but then I just sort of would fold it open. And then the stand was totally hidden by her leg. So I didn't have to worry about retouching that out, which was nice.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Behind the scenes exclusives,
right?
So that you'll get on no other YouTube channel.
And then I was gonna say to Chai-Star G, I actually have seen that doll, and it's very cool. I wish I would have bought her when she first came out, because now on eBay she's pretty spendy, but she's a cool doll. I definitely keep my eye open for her.
Yeah, G, you're dropping comments gold in the comments section here. I'm going to backtrack into what you have doing over with Barbie as a folk over.
What? Oh, so I got like a G.I. Joe thing, the G.I. Joe Migo in the back.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
You know, I get a lot of requests to do other toys and everything. I should, I'll be honest. It's tough because I only average about one shoot a month. They take they're a lot longer than I think people assume. So it's tough. I definitely need to expand my toy vocabulary. And G.I. Joe is probably the most requested addition to sort of my Barbie pictures. I get that. I mean, all summer I will get, dozens of people requesting adding G.I. Joe into the mix. So I have to.
Well, it is kind of a classic pairing across the toy aisle, right? Barbie and G.I. Joe.
Exactly.
And Migos being at 8-inch scale, you know, that's not you'd have to do some foreground, background to get the size to match up. And whereas sometimes a creative challenge can bring a good result, on the other hand, it might be kind of constricting to have them so far apart from each other within the same shot.
And that's tough. Like, it would be cool to do one, like when I was debating about what to mail to Svengoolie too, like his figures, he's got the Migo one that's smaller. And then there's that new figure of him that came out. I have to order it still, but I think that's still only around 8 inches.
The Figures Toy Company one.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to them doing another release again. I've got my fingers crossed in my head. Said they're going to have Sven with a Sven mobile, but you know, anything that's not with the eBay markups that are out there right now. I see big numbers on eBay, but in the realm of the Svengoolie network, the MeTv network, also we have Star Trek reruns, which brings us to is this one the Barbies of Trek, or what's the exact name of this?
This one is Barbies of Trek, and this one I really wanted to do, you know, kind of like a nod to Uhura. And the doll that I use is actually not an Uhura doll. It's actually she was just a different line. And they did make an Uhura, Kirk, and Spock Barbie. recently, and I have those, and I mainly have them for the outfits. And then I, use other dolls. So I didn't use any specifically Star Trek Barbies. I just used the outfits. And I just kind of like the ladies being in charge, on the on the bridge instead of the fellas. And this one, it really came together with the captain's chair. I had found, I can't remember when it was released, and because I get a lot of this, like the Star Trek emails too, and I can't even remember which manufacturer it was. And it was a whole thing. Like I was like, oh my gosh, this will be so perfect. It's like Barbie scale and everything. And then somehow my order got lost and they were sold out. And it was just, I ended up, I think, getting it off of eBay for more, it was just what a pickle. And it was funny when I was shooting this, I don't know why it was fighting with me. The composition and the lighting just were futzing with me. I have, for lighting, it's like I studied commercial lighting in college. And so I kind of look at things in more of a lighting it for commercial purposes way. And I think that's a lot of fun because you can completely change the picture by the lighting. And this one, it was fighting with, and it was all the lighting, and it was, and a little bit of the composition, and just fighting with me. And which is fine, except for when I was working on it, I wanted the lights on the captain's chair to be lit. And when you do that, it was making all the Star Trek sounds that, I mean, of course, we love them for a few minutes, but I mean, I was working on this for like hours. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to throw this thing through the wall because it is so annoying. But if I turn the lights off, the little thingies off, then I'll get the perfect shot, but then the lights won't be on. So I left it on and just dealt with the sound. And afterwards, I realized I could have had the lights on without the sound. And I was like, I am an idiot. So sometimes I get too excited or something and I don't look at the details like that. Because yeah, literally what the little whistly sounds and everything. Oh my God, hours.
Yeah, I could see after a while that would run its course.
It did.
G, while we're on the subject of lighting, you had some thoughts on the.
Well, it's funny. So Nicole, it's fascinating that you brought up the commercial lighting thing, because that was as Mr. C and I were chatting before all of this. One of the things that is to me striking about your work is the lighting. There's a style that you seem to have across all of your pieces, and back when was it? October? See, when we were doing the competition between us and J Spy, the Crafter Challenge with J Spy, and like the lighting was killing me. Yeah, I couldn't seem to figure it out, and I had this other thing, and then I kind of not cheated, but I manipulated things with a fog thing, and it was just like, yeah, but I couldn't figure out the lighting. I couldn't figure it out. So with your how you do it, where it doesn't get washed out. There's not like awkward shadows or anything. It's professionally executed every time in your pieces. So your background in commercial light, that's fascinating. And now it's like, oh, that's why it's as good as it is. It's amazing.
But lighting, anybody, I think lighting is really intimidating, but it's super fun. And I think that once you have the tools and you can just sit and play with it, because what you see, like when I light it, it's like, that's what it is. That's what it's going to photograph as. And I don't know. But I do think it is intimidating for people. But because you don't need a degree or anything to do it. It's just that that was my background. And then I worked at a commercial photo studio as well. But I generally use one light and different modifiers. Wow. And that's it. I almost never use two lights. So it's actually,
that's amazing.
Almost like surprisingly easy, but it's intimidating, but it doesn't need to be.
Like in this shot with the Star Trek background, you've got the lights popping off of the chair as you described, but then you also still have, it's not washing out the rest of the background. You're shooting it from like, seems to be above a little bit, and it just pops. It looks like it's from that era. It's not just the outfits, but it's like also the lighting is of that time.
It looks like the show.
It looks like the show. Yes, that's it. Thank you. That's what I'm trying to say.
That's like it's such a compliment. I mean, seriously, that's exactly what, that's the dream, you know, when you do something like this, to be able to elicit that response. And a lot of it is trickery. I mean, just how far back, you know, the background there is again a printed backdrop. It's like how far back where I'm not getting shadows. You know, how do I keep some of the stuff to almost emulate like it's still lit, you know, even though it's a printed background, and that kind of stuff. But it's a lot of it is just the perspective of looking through the camera and then seeing, you know, okay, well, I'm going to push this further back, I'm going to push this further, you know, forward, or that kind of stuff. And a lot of times it's, if you looked at like what the setup is, like it doesn't look impressive, because you have to look at it through the perspective of the camera to see what it actually looks like, which is, it's funny. It's weird. It's like some of my shoots look like a jumble of nonsense, but then when you look at it through the camera with everything in its right place in that one perspective, it all comes together, you know? So, and then I like this. Do you ever get strange photo requests for yes. I mean, a million times, yes, and I can't even repeat half of them. Like, so again, I do art fairs all summer, and yes, people have ideas and they like to share them, and some of them are very not family friendly.
There you go.
And since we're the interest to being family friendly, we'll just know that those exist. And then for the more origin, before we go to G's question of I just got to say, until you said that the background was just a flat image. So there's the upper screens that are more square in shape, and then there's the panel. I was convinced that you picked up something from like a JSpy 25 of an eBay seller or an Etsy seller, because it worked. You created the, I don't know if foreshortening is the right term, or the vanishing point is the right term, but I thought it was a legit hard plastic object, and you had placed them on a bridge set.
And honestly, like sometimes I do get stuff like that. Like I'll have a whole set, but for this one I didn't. And so, yeah, it's just all the lighting and the trickery for it. And because it was like, I didn't want to limit myself to not do the shoot. Like I was really, you know, sold on working on this particular image. And the only, you know, and I didn't, it's, you know, I had access to a backdrop, and I'm like, well, how am I going to make it so it doesn't look, you know, corny, because you don't want it to look like it's just, them in front of a poster.
Oh, it looks great. It really looks great.
Yeah.
All right. So what got you started?
Well, you know, it's funny because I mean, I was born in 75, so you know, you have access in the 80s to like some of the greatest toys, of course. So I, of course, had Barbie and played with Barbie and loved Barbie as a kid, but I also had, you know, like tons of other amazing 80s toys. So I can't say that I was just exclusively a Barbie person, but I have always loved Barbie, and I like more mid-century modern aesthetic. And she came out in 59, so she kind of fits right into that era. I studied art and commercial photography, and I liked having this ability to control an environment and create these scenes that kind of evoke like my personality and my likes and my sense of humor and that kind of stuff. But in this controlled environment, and then utilizing something like a toy, of course, that I love, and that that also has her own baggage and narrative and nostalgia. You know, I mean, who doesn't? Everybody loves play and toys, and I don't care how old you are. You know, and kids don't even though they don't recognize that this isn't the Barbie that they use right now or play with, like they don't know it's Barbie. And so like, you know, they'll come in and talk to me about playing with their dolls or their action figures or, you know, so it's kind of a universal language, toys are. So that's kind of how that mentality kind of has propelled me with this series. Let's see. Do you illustrate all your backdrops? They're almost all stock images. So, or I photographed the background. So, like the Godzilla one is a stock image of a forest fire that I just used the top part, the plumes of smoke. And then the Star Trek one was, it's actually a little more illustrative, but I purchased it from a person who was selling off like stock images to create dioramas. And then the creature from the Black Lagoon is also a stock picture. But like I have a bunch that are like Barbie and Ken out and about in town in Minneapolis, which is where I live. And those are all photographed. Like all the backgrounds I took the pictures for.
Well, let's definitely get to some of those. Again, we're fortunate to have a artist as a guest and as an artist as a part of the. Who? Here we go.
Oh, that's another really great question. So I have kind of a mix of vintage and reproduction dolls. I generally tend to use reproduction dolls because they photograph better. So even though like I have this arsenal collection of dolls that have many, and I have, you know, a bunch of vintage ones, the reproduction ones tend to photograph better because the plastic is new, the hair is new, but they still have the vintage face mold, like where she's looking to the side, and it's like it's the aesthetic that I want, but not necessarily the actual vintage doll. And then I'm also manhandling them pretty heavily, so I kind of would rather manhandle and be rough on like a reproduction doll versus you know, some of my vintage ones. Well, obviously Barbie would win, but and then legally she did for a long time because, you know, when they created the Bratz dolls, it was a designer for Mattel, and then Mattel sued them and took their company over, and now Mattel runs them. So Barbie won.
There you have it. On 2 layers, on 2 levels, the battle was engaged, and it was an 0-2 kind of a thing. All right, let's do a couple more that we have selected here, and then let's jump around to Dave's blog for a bit, and then come on to the actual NicoleHouff.com. And so, okay, this one I should have my still in the box Mego 50th anniversary with the tight fit helmet on the Batman, so that but now, I mean, that is so Adam West on the paint job so even until I saw this photo, I didn't know that Batman and that Catwoman existed. So how did you learn of them, and then how did you put the composition together?
This one was honestly one of my easiest photos because they created Barbie, or Mattel created you know, Adam West era, Ken as Batman, and then Barbie as Catwoman dolls a while back, probably a decade ago or so. So they're perfect because they had the vintage look, which I like, and then the outfits that were specific to the Adam West era. So the dolls were simple. Like I was like, okay, I have the dolls. Like this requires nothing from me. But then it was just about, well, you know, I like putting them in these non-traditional environments. You know, instead of having them out fighting crime or out in the city, I decided to do kind of the cheesy family portrait style, you know, like the old family portraits where it's like the mom was sitting in the front and the dad's in back, and Olin Mills style or whatever. And then for the color palette, I was like, well, it has to be the opposite of Batman. So I just went with totally Barbie pink. Like the background is actually a panel from a Barbie dream house. And then it's actually a modern couch. And then I just zip over to the fabric store to buy something for the carpeting. But yeah, so I just kind of going with like a bubblegum portrait of our crime fighter there.
Bubblegum, and then even the Mego box for Batman is also pink. So I mean, it's just. And then here's another question: do you have duplicates in case one gets broken?
I do. I have probably around 100 dolls, which is a lot. And my favorite ones that I photograph the most, I have at least 2 of. Because sometimes, like one that I used to use quite a bit, I kind of screwed up her hairdo. And so, I mean, ultimately I should send her out and have the hair reset, but I have a spare of her, which I know is kind of funny. But yeah, I do have duplicates of a bunch of the dolls.
And then let's go. G, do you have any thoughts to add on Batman and Catwoman, or should we jump to our next DC character?
I love the use of the. So I didn't know anything about the background, but hearing the story, I love the use of the vintage product, incorporating it into the shoot. That's really awesome.
Thanks.
That's cool.
All right, so still in the realm of DC characters. The Lasso of Truth might have a couple different purposes in some different situations.
This one was like, again, when I was born and such, I grew up watching the Linda Carter era of Wonder Woman in syndication. And, what little kid, didn't want to be her? She was just so awesome. So I'm like, I wanted to do kind of a fun homage to her for a long time. But and they have made plenty of Barbie Barbie as Wonder Woman dolls, but they're generally more, I mean, I'm going to say modern, but we're talking like 80s and 90s and such, and then currently, of course. So they didn't have the right look to her at all. Because I wanted to do, again, I like using the vintage face structure. It kind of still has that vintage feel. So I actually found a reproduction doll that had the face that I wanted, but she had like this updo. And so I shipped her out to this amazing woman named Marianne Roy, and she's out on the East Coast. And she does a lot of she'll refurbish dolls, reset their hair if you need. Like this, she completely redid the hair for me. And then she also designs and creates Barbie furniture. So the set that I used for this shoot was also created by Marianne Roy. And even she makes such a small run of furniture that even getting any pieces of hers is just such an honor. So it was kind of fun to do a shoot that incorporated the doll that she had redone the hair for me, and the couch and the background and the lamp were all created by her as well. So that was really exciting. And what I like with this one is that, you can kind of take the meaning of it a couple different ways, of course. I've had a lot of different interpretations of the shoot, which I think is exciting. So, like I've had people like, oh, it's like the she's fighting the patriarchy, or is it just Steve Trevor being feisty? I mean, it's like, or you can think about like the origins of Wonder Woman and who created her and everything. So, and I always figure that it's really like the viewers interpretation. Like my interpretation doesn't mean as much when it's more like what you as the viewer want to read into it. So that one was really fun. I had such a blast with that one. And the outfit was from like a early 90s doll that I just scooped up off eBay.
Huh. Yeah, that with that one. So, Mr. C, you asked me separately what was like one of my favorite pieces of Nicole's. That would have been on my short list. That would be on my short list. The quality. See the quality that you have in the diorama. You've got it both in the figure itself and then the diorama as well. But it was like, that's not just kind of any dream house sofa or the matching coffee table. That's a quality piece. And it shows up in the picture.
Right.
Yeah, I was so lucky to get that.
It's amazing.
The lady that makes those is just, I mean, her work is, when I say impeccable, it's impeccable. She'll do these little pop-ups and have like 4 sofas and that's it. and you just have to know when they go on sale and scoop them up. And I've kind of through the years now, made a friendship with her via email and such, and she's just fantastic. And when I asked her this random thing like, hey, I really want to do, a Linda Carter era Wonder Woman doll, and she's like, yeah, just send her over, I'll get her hair done. And then she sends it back and it's perfect. It's like, what? Like, it was so cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely cool. As I kind of mentioned at the beginning of starting the shoot tonight, and how did we get here? So whichever number a few years ago, I was looking for a good anniversary present for the wife. I got the glare, so I'm trying to get it. But anyway, so we'll come back into the actual off of your page. But so Tiki Barbie was the first one that landed here. But again, the degree of detail. Well, I'll put this down and we'll look at the clean image without the glare. But again, the period piece, the details. It looks like they're having fun. All that stuff. Now let's see if we can successfully bring into the share and get the Dave up here and share. And all right, so again, there was on the terrordaves.com, and where he's doing coverage of C2E2. There's Barbie and the creature there, and then again there's Sven signing and all that, and there's
Mr. C
me in the line. There's me in the line to get the signature on the piece, and there's Nanette and Svengoolie, and deep cuts off the shoulder of Svengoolie, since the Svenards ads were part of the humor bits. So there's instead of the Menards, can't call him mascot, but spokesman. So there's the Svenards spokesman right there in the back, and there's anyway, Dave did a real bang up job on the coverage there. And then let me come back out of that, and let me get my bearings again, and then let me jump into the. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I was really honored that he put my piece in there. I mean, again, like, that was just shows like the cool sort of Sven community, and the fact that you did that for me and waited in line, and it was just so, I mean, there aren't even words. It's really, really cool, like, as corny as that sounds, it's just really cool.
And it's like I've been saying to Dave, the further you walk along the yellow brick road, the more you get to encounter interesting characters along the way. We got another comment, and let's get that. Here we go. A technical question.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of camera?
I use the Nikon D850. So it's a DSLR. So it has interchangeable lenses, and it's a full frame sensor camera. The files are really large, which is nice. They enlarge really well. And I was telling them before we went live that I actually have been able, for a previous show, I printed them like beyond life size, like 5 feet almost. So, and the files enlarge really nicely. So yeah, the Nikon D850. There
you go. All right. So again, here's again an interesting use of backdrop. And now again, in terms of faking people out, so okay, there's a glass in the one hand, and then is that an iron in her other hand?
It's an iron, because don't you wear a full, formal gown while ironing your clothes? I mean, I know I do. Just and that one was just, again, it was a very basic backdrop from a set, and it actually had a lot of glare to it, so that one was a little harder to light. So I just went with the with kind of a harsh side lighting to it, But yeah, that one, so it's kind of like these back panels that they would use for either dream houses or kind of these cardboard sets that they used to create in the 60s. And sometimes they make reproductions of the actual things like that, which is nice too.
All right, let's see if I can navigate. Oh, here more comments keep coming, so that's good. That's good. Oh boy. Oh, hang on. Let me. Yeah, if we were gonna put us in a scene with Barbie, yeah, let's keep going. All
It'd be
right.
disembodied heads on Zoom. That's what it would be. It would only be like the top third of the Barbie action figure or the Barbie doll. Yeah.
All right, again, you got so many, like it would take a long while to cover everything in the inventory, but just to give people an idea of the variety that you have. And here's another Trek theme with a Ken as a Kirk in the background, and again the side eye is present. And again, it's just fun, it's just playful, it's just good stuff what you're doing. This one had a bit of a Captain America vibe, but I like again. We could. What were your thoughts on the background on this? Is it the ski lift? It's just
so it was. I get a lot of requests for Ken photos, especially like more Ken portraits. And so for that one, I had access to the outfit, was the Olympic ski outfit, and I was looking through stock photos, and I liked that one had the red ski lift chair. So it was that one was purely chosen just for the composition and the color. It was a nice crisp blue white. Yeah. And then I do a Christmas one every single year. So
yeah, and then we've got the four of them upstairs outside of the scope of the camera right here, but it's good stuff. Again, a little bit of overlap in this one with the Wonder Woman and a little bit of its own thing as well.
And some are just more portraity, like just a single doll, without any larger narrative to them. And sometimes those are fun to work on when I'm trying to, they're kind of like palette cleansers too. So like if I have a larger piece that I'm working on, sometimes working on just a single doll image can kind of reset the creative process to go back to the bigger ones. Like during the Godzilla one, I actually had a whole other shoot going as well. So because that one was taking so long. And this one right here is part of my Barbie and Ken out and about in Minneapolis. And for anybody from Minneapolis, we would know that First Avenue and Prince is kind of our mecca. So
nice.
And I noticed Prince gets his own color on the star, but it's been a while since Bob Mould has been on the charts, and as musicians age, some of them produce less frequently, but you got a great variety of musical influences here in the backdrop.
So if you ever come up to Minneapolis, the First Ave is our most iconic of music spots, and it was essentially saved by Prince in a lot of ways when he did his movie Purple Rain. And the entire outside of the building are all these silver stars. And Prince has always, to my knowledge, had a star on it, but after his passing 7 years ago, they changed his star to gold. And actually today is the anniversary of that. So up here in Minneapolis, we do have some Prince things going on.
That's great. That's great. Gee, you're as a former college DJ, any thoughts on the variety of musical representation here?
I love it. I love it. I think we need to do a field trip to Minneapolis. I haven't been up that way in a while. So yeah.
That's at our sculpture garden. We have the Walker, which is kind of our bigger modern art sculpture garden. And most famous for, we have the Spoon Bridge and Cherry by Klaus Oldenburg and his wife. And when they brought in this piece, it was funny because people just were all up in arms. They're like, oh my gosh, it's a big blue rooster, blah, blah, blah. And now it's like one of the most beloved of public art pieces in Minneapolis.
It's got some personality. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was just funny how everybody turned on it. So I was like, if I'm going to do one where Barbie and Ken are in the sculpture garden, I had to pick kind of the contentious. I mean, again, now everybody loves it, so don't get me wrong. But when it first went up, I lived just down the street from it. It was just a whole thing.
The Campbell Soup T-shirt is got all kinds of great reference in it, and it's. I mean, I don't know if all of Ken's outfits, but I would definitely wear that shirt and that hat. And now you've gone black and white here. So again, you're working in color, you're working black and white. It's all good stuff.
This one was one of those sort of palette cleanser kind of things. It was as we were moving into after Christmas this year, I wanted to I knew Godzilla was on the horizon and some other pieces that required more of my attention. And I needed to just work on something not simple, but just focused on one doll, you know. And so I wanted to do a vintage Hollywood lighting for her. So I kind of went back and looked at a bunch of old, you know, vintage Hollywood actor and actress like headshots that, you know, again, back in the day were all black and white, and sort of studied some of the lighting on it. So this one is actually one of the rare ones that I have two lights. So there's sort of the back kicker light and then that front light.
And it works.
Mr. C, you got a comment you might want to put up.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah,
while I'm steering it,
so,
I couldn't see directly, but yeah, let me jump back over and let me scroll.
The most recent comment.
Okay, coming. Okay. Aha. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Caller of the show. Sorry, Chai Star. This comment is I gotta rank and weight this one with greater significance. Good. See, that's I haven't been but it's time for me to get caught up.
There you go.
It's a great sculpture garden. And I would have to ask, like, so they recently redid some of it the last couple of years, all of the greenery. So if you haven't been, if Christina hasn't been up for a while, means you got to come back up.
Again, that may be on the right. Now this one, gee, I don't. Again, this is not a neon hot dog. This is not a wing, but just something about this strikes me as it's similar to Superdog, but it's completely its own thing. Nicole, could you tell us? I know we've communicated about this. Again, Ken's got his good shirt going here. You got corn dog. You can tell it's not Chicago because there appears to be ketchup on the hot dog. But Nicole, how did you put this one together?
First of all, I have to say that when I bought the little corn dogs, you could have bought them with just mustard or ketchup. And unfortunately, as a Minnesotan, I opted for the ketchup. But so it's actually at our Minnesota State Fair, which if you ask anybody in Minnesota, they would tell you that our state fair is better than anybody else's state fair. We're very, very protective and proud of our state fair. And it is after Texas is technically larger, but I don't know. So anyways, this is our mascot from the state fair. Which is a gopher, and his name is Fairlane. There's Fairlane and Fairchild. There's two of them. And it's just what I like about this particular sculpture of him is that it's very like old school kind of, it reminds me of like the statues that like at the highway statues and such. So I liked that it had the vintage feel to him. A lot of people do selfies with him because he's a big, he's close to the entrance and everything. So I knew that I wanted to take a picture with him, with Barbie and Ken, but I didn't want to do it during the fair when there's like a million people. It's next to him, it's very difficult. So what I did is our fairgrounds are permanent. So I just waited till, it wasn't fair time, but it wasn't winter, and just drove over to the fairgrounds and, when the lighting was right, and got the photo. And then for this, it's similar to like the creature from the Black Lagoon in that I print the backdrop or the background picture on a really matte paper, and I hang it as a backdrop. And then I set the dolls up so they kind of look more people size and less doll size, and then design the lighting to emulate the sun. But I thought he was just I don't know. He has like kind of a fun, timeless yet vintage feel, and yet a good homage to our state fair. So that's why I picked him.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. It's perfect.
And
Thank
again, gee,
you.
the stand underneath him, this reference is more for Chicago people. It reminds me a bit of at Lincoln Park Zoo when you go into the hot dog hut over there. It's got a similar kind of vibe to that, but again, it captures a whole lot of stuff. I better I'm gonna go. Chai Star's having a little bit of a
I don't know what's going on now.
give the fans what they want.
What the?
All right.
No,
Well,
no.
don't skip your custom.
I don't have a basement in my house, but whatever. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. All right. So there we've
What
aired the question, and now
what?
we're moving on from the
No,
question.
yeah, we're moving
Right.
on. Moving on.
For
You would
crying
wear
out
that
loud.
shirt. You would wear that shirt. That would be a Mr. C kind of shirt, I think.
Absolutely. Now let me
Yeah.
jump back to where I can't see everything, but to navigate to the next picture. There we go. They're on the beach. They're
That's
having
where
again the
the-
Christmas lights on the beach. It's real neat.
Thanks. Yeah, it's just like every year doing a Christmas one. I think I was just sick of our Minnesota winter, so I was like, this is where I could handle being on the beach for Christmas.
You know, is this the same sand or the same type of sand you used for Barbie and Creature, or?
It is. So I actually had like a pretty vast amount of it because it matches a couple of my backdrops really perfectly, which is nice. And once you find something like that, yeah, you got to just scoop a bunch up.
And again, here hidden Thanksgiving. So the way you're changing colors from season to season, but staying in a mid-century with the tones and everything. But I mean, the down to the stitching of the turkey on the apron. I mean, this is again the details bring it all together. It's top stuff.
It's all the details, baby. That's where you find it. That's what's fun. It's like looking. When you view things at such a different size, and then when you move it even just a little bit because you're dealing with such a different scale, it completely can change the composition, which is, can be frustrating, but also super fun. Yeah. So there's a bunch of like portrait-y ones and,
Right. So
poor Elvis.
Is that Elvis in the background on this one?
Yep, it's Elvis, and I always laugh because poor Ken just doesn't stand a chance. Not against Elvis.
It's tough competition. It's tough competition. A variety.
Well, that reminded me of our trip to New York, Mr. C, with the naked cowboy. I don't know if the naked cowboy is still around in New York, but
I'm not sure. I know that because I redid. I had a cowboy one, where he just has the hat. It was one of my oldest pieces, and I was revisiting it this year because, like I said, I get a lot of requests for Kens, and I had been kind of neglecting him, so I needed to get some new ones done, like there with the poor Kens floating around and that one. It was funny because I had this idea. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna buy a blue, kiddie pool and put it in the studio and fill it with water and float these Kens. And I can guarantee you that none of that worked properly because first of all, I'm putting this pool in my studio where there's no sink. I'm like, okay, I need to fill this with water and I need to get the water out. And then you couldn't, it was, long story short, I ended up not using the pool, but I did have to get the water out of it eventually.
I think we have a more sincere question this time around from Chai Star. Color palette inspiration?
I do like, a lot of the mid-century modern advertising and those palettes, but a lot of times the palettes, the overall picture become dictated by maybe a detail or like a component of the photo. So like this one that's up right now with the two Kens, I found the inner tubes first, kind of the lemon and lime. And then I was looking at what's contrast and complementary. So I went with the red trunks to give some contrast. And then that also dictated then like the blue that I chose. Because ultimately I did use a stock photo for the background, and then they're actually placed above it. And so I kind of will pick things that then work together. Like there'll be a starting point, and then as you build an ad on that, what colors to use. And I do not skew the colors in post. I honestly, it'd probably be easier if I could do more like color swapping and that kind of stuff, which you can do in Photoshop, but it's a little out of my skill set.
But well within your skill set, the magic trick of this one. So the lemon and the lime, they're afloat. So, but like there's no other how but there's no shadow. Like there's the shadow of the float, there's the shadow of Ken's legs, but there's no other shadow. So that I was like, well, how
yeah, so this one because again, I thought I was gonna just float them in a pool, and then of course that didn't work. And so when I had to come up with a new option for that, I still needed to create the illusion that they're floating on water, which would obviously have a shadow in a pool. So what I ended up doing is picking the water pattern and having that printed, and I laid that on the floor. And then what I did is I actually had kind of a glass, they're actually glasses that are actually underneath the Kens that fit right underneath kind of their keister, if you will. And then you can't see them from the inner tube, and that raises them off the pattern of the water enough to create the illusion that it's a shadow in the pool. And then I photographed it from above.
That's brilliant. That's amazing. Yeah, I could only imagine the difficult if you did the pool thing, then they'd be floating around you. In addition to the whole, what do you do with a tub of water in your house?
It was really a flawed thought process on my end. I'm actually surprised that I thought it would work, and and now I have an extra kiddie pool that I just don't.
There you go.
Some positive was drawn from it in the end. I see we're heading just north of an hour here, so it'll be good to start to wind down. Again, Nicole, going back to however many years ago it was that I was trying to land good for the anniversary present. I still appreciate that this one was where we started. And again, just the same things could be said about just your eye for detail, your comedic sense, your use of lighting, your just all the different elements you have together. It makes for good stuff.
Thank you. And I really appreciate that, because usually when people buy something online, I don't hear anything else. So it was really cool when you did a follow-up question with me and we created this dialogue. It's incredibly exciting to have people ask, and then it was awesome. So I truly appreciate it. It really, look at what it's become. It's awesome.
Absolutely. And it's same going back to J Spy, trying to figure out how he's doing the 3D printing, or then with Laser Migo, how he's doing 3D printing or laser cutting. It's all just different influences, different things coming together. Chai Star's got do you sell it? Well, conventions or more fairs, to slightly rephrase the.
I do art fairs, and I am in Minneapolis. And we don't have a lot of conventions anymore up here. I am trying to get into Chicago for some of the art fairs there, and actually over into Palm Springs as well. Both markets are incredibly hard to get into. And I do think about like the artist alleys. I'm not sure, because Barbie's not quite the same grouping, you know what I mean? Like, so I kick it around here and there.
I could see like a designer con in LA, or the Palm Springs. Mr. C, it's funny actually. You haven't done anything about Shag yet, the Shag brand in Palm Springs, because there's an intersection with your 50s and 60s style with the Shag kind of style as well. I could see all the opportunities, but yeah.
Well,
I actually got to meet Shag once.
Really?
He knows one of the it's a bar up in Minneapolis. He knows the owner and has a bunch of work in one of the locations, although that location is gone now. And they would do a tiki party in the summer, and it was right before COVID. And he was the featured person. And I actually had an art fair that day, and I'm like, oh my gosh, but I can't not go. And I went, and I totally like fangirled on him, and he was so gracious and sweet to me, and just a really cool guy. So it was, I mean, and he's such a big name. It was awesome that he spent the time to chat.
That's fantastic.
Just to say something nice about him.
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
The convergence of all the different things, and well before I picked up the first of the Doug Horn pieces over here. Yeah, I definitely. So spoilers, not spoilers. Don't be surprised in the summer if there's some no face but camera on the. You know, we might look at some of the old comics that have come by, and it's some. There may yet be out of Shag's book some highlights of Shag's material. So.
Nice.
You know, the road is long, many ideas and many things to highlight, but all good things in their time. G, closing thoughts.
Well, this was fantastic. This was a lot of fun. Nicole. We communicated a little bit through Instagram and other stuff. So it's great to see you. I guess this counts as in person. Yeah, I'm going to count as still. It's great to see you here and chat and just to better understand the process. This is really cool. So thank you for having me ride along with you, Mr. C, as well. So thank you.
It wouldn't be, it wouldn't be the same otherwise. And again, our top commenter of the show, thanks upstairs for dropping some comments. Thanks Chai Star for giving the artist questions that we could. All right, Jim, I'm trying to write the thing down. Quit putting thanks for the comments. Well, you got to ask that. You're in the next live stream. It's tomorrow. We're eating hot dogs, and you know this already.
So to do the YouTube thing, Mr. C, Nicole, what's the best way for people to follow you, stay in contact? How can people learn more about Nicole Houff?
You can just go to my website, which is NicoleHouff.com, and there are links for my Instagram and my Etsy page. And as far as social goes, I'm most active on Instagram.
That's great.
All right. Yep. Thanks, everybody. As led into by comment of Chai Star G, if you're not doing anything tomorrow and you feel like watching a couple three knuckleheads eat hot dogs live from the parking lot of Gene and Jude's, then feel free to pop right back around here. I'm not going to put it on the schedule because I don't know if it's a longer line. Then we're working out of the parking lot. It's a little bit, so, but it's coming. It's coming
it's
tomorrow.
Way to sell it. Three guys in a parking lot
live. I mean, yeah, it'll be give or take 3 o'clock tomorrow. Maybe a little before 3, maybe a little after 3. Maybe I'm not doing the best sell, but what am I going to do? I'm going to say we're going to go live at 3, and then we're still in the line for the hot dogs. Come on. Hey, if you were here, you could contribute. Anyway, all right. Hey, this is the cold show. This is not the hot dog show. It's enough talking. We had corn dogs.
All right. Yes.
Nicole, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks. The dogs, let's go. All right. Okay. All right.
There's the creature. Creature's waving.
And thanks everybody. And we are out.